Oh, my homies, good comeback today. We are setting a really good standard for what I want this program to become. Because, every day that I get more and more used to like a genuine strength training program again, rather than just like the typical messing around, like doing just heavy stuff for fun, like not giving much of a damn for any of the sessions that I was doing the past like 6 months or so. It's not going to be as heavy for a little while. I'm not expecting to hit any PRs while I'm doing this kind of program, just getting started. This is still the first month, getting everything figured out, setting the basis, the what my baseline needs to be for the future growth of this stuff. And I got in with really, really low energy. I just was not feeling it. Mainly because I just kind of sat around doing jack shit today, which is my bad. But the biggest thing was just I've had a continuous pattern of having low energy clean and jerk heavy days. Not because the days themselves are impossible to do with high energy, but because I set them up in a poor way. Where I spend most of the day just kind of messing around, not being. I don't need to be productive, but I need to do a little something to get myself out of bed. Because I got work tonight, so I just kind of laid around and just hung out until I had gym. But when you go to the gym feeling lazy, it's not going to transition over well, especially when you're getting started. The clean and jerks, as I said, I had a good mindset about it. I really wanted to make like a good standard, like at least commit as hard as I could to the form and the technique for what I could do today, for whatever energy I had to put into it. And it didn't feel great. It didn't feel primed. Let me set that straight. Like, the technique was good, but the lack of energy and whenever you set that standard for yourself in just that present day, it can make imbalances or old poor habits, or latent injuries like my left rotator cuff on the rear delt. It starts to flare up a little bit because you're just stressing your body out in areas that it typically wouldn't need to if you were fully primed, and that's part of the process. It's going to happen. You're going to have to push through days where there's excess, I don't want to say like strictly pain, but it's just discomfort. Part of this sport is being okay with not feeling the best on some of these days, working through the discomfort instead of just accepting it and giving up, So, of course, 3 plates would have been great, really good as a new standard, but didn't happen today. I didn't expect it to, and I wanted to just take it one weight at a time, Got to 295. Technique was damn near perfect, so I'll take it. I'm very, very happy with it. Everything is finally transitioning over the way I want it to, but now that I have a new program to work with, I have to get used to that kind of conditioning, that new kind of schedule and effort needed to do these kind of hard workouts throughout a genuine progressive overload mixed with my mess around type training on just certain recovery days, So it's a work in progress. It's getting figured out. You'll see it on the 315 clean and jerk. It did not go. The moment I pulled it, I could feel that my CNS was not there. I probably pulled it high enough to dive underneath it if I genuinely wanted to, but it would have been bad form. It would have hurt my knees. I didn't want to risk anything just for the sake of doing something a little stupid. This is a new program, a new day, a new max. So I'm not going to convince myself that I've got something in me that I don't, So one way or another, I'm happy with it, And again, being smart with it and taking that time to chillax and just accept what weight that you could genuinely hit for that good technique, with the right technique, it's what will transition to your other lifts way better. Because it was really, really nice to be able to just get into front squat without being overly tired. And like I said last time, I made my foot stance a little bit more narrow, and that made a world of difference. If you've got long legs and longer arms like I do for Olympic lifting, try narrowing your stance a little bit. It's going to be harder on your hips and your core and low back a little bit because you're going to be hitting more of a vertical depth than with a wider foot stance, but the lack of stress on the knees, and it honestly made my core feel more stable, even though it was harder, because there was less stress being put on my shoulders to where I could hold it completely upright the whole way without having to worry about it. And that was the biggest issue I was having. So I'm going to try that on back squat whenever I get to it tomorrow. And we'll see if it transitions over for that as well. If it doesn't, it's a different kind of lift. The bar rests on my back, so it's going to be lined up a little different when it comes to my spine. But one way or another, we're progressing. 365 on front squat, for that good a technique and that good a drive, I will run home crying happy about, Because same thing with the overhead squat. I'm telling you guys, like, the strength has been exponential with this new training. It's been really, really good. My core and my technique has never been this good. It's just getting used to that kind of thing again and allowing the main muscle groups to catch up so that my Olympic lifts can be accessorized by these main muscle group strength type lifts. Clean pull, the CNS was pretty burnt out by then. The sides of my core were especially getting burned out, my low back, but just took the time I needed, really locked in the starting position before ripping into it, because a lot of times on a clean pull, people will rip off the ground as hard as they can, but that's not the power position. You have to remind you, because I was doing that for some of my warm-ups, you have to remind yourself that even though you feel the need or the want to rip off the ground really hard because of how heavy the weight is, it's not a deadlift where you can just stand it up. It's a clean pull. Same thing with the clean and jerks or the snatch variations or whatever. That starting position coming off the ground does not need to be a hard rip or really, really fast. It just needs to be consistent enough to where you can get in the proper technical position at the knees to where you can pull it as hard as you want vertically into your hips. Because if you rip off the ground, either your butt's going to go up first, like it did for me on a couple of my sets, or your core's not going to be able to support it properly when you get to that heavy position, and it's going to be all out of line. I've caught clean pulls before that made my whole low back bend inward. That is a scary feeling, man. When you have your nerves bending on each other and you can feel that tingle all the way up your spine, that's a scary fucking feeling. So it's not worth it. Do a slower startup, a slower pull off the ground, so that you can speed it up to 100% when you get to your hips. And 405 on clean pull, absolutely take that. Really, really good. The biggest thing today was just, there are going to be days when you're sitting there and you're going to tell yourself that you're not being productive enough, that it shouldn't be as much a rest day as you're giving yourself, and that you're wasting your time. And the question I always like to ask people is, are you not being productive enough, or do you just need to get out? Because typically you'll know if you're being productive enough. Like with my schedule with work, a lot of times I work a lot of days in a row. Like this next week starting today, I'm going to have 5 out of the next 7 days to work. And then I'm going to have a lot of days off. But still, that hard on and then hard back off of that kind of scheduling makes it feel like those last couple of days of my days off of work feel lazier than than I normally feel, and you'll convince yourself that you don't deserve that rest when you do, And so rather than thinking that, like, on days like today, like I spent most of the day sitting around just vegging out because, I didn't really have anything else to do, and I wanted to take that rest so that I could be as primed as I could for the gym and work. But you'll stare at the wall long enough, you won't, I was alone in the house today, so you won't talk to people, and then you'll get in your head about it, and it's a whole spiral that you'll take yourself down on until you make yourself think that today's worse than it really is, And instead of sitting there and staring at the wall and staring at my phone and convincing myself that it was a lazy, not as great day, I could have taken the dog on a walk. I could have gone to the Dollar General, walked around. I could have gone to a restaurant by myself and just gotten out of the house. That's the biggest thing. I could have made a phone call to a homie. Just having some sort of interaction with something that gets you moving, that gets your mind working instead of rotting, is what will make the day so much better. It's not a matter that I need to do more work or that I need to do more homework or think about the gym more. The rest is what is needed, and I just have to give myself the availability to accept it, because when you're going to sit there and tell yourself that you need to work harder when you know that the next time you go to work you're not going to want to be there, set yourself up to where you rest enough to where you want to go back to work. I'm not going to say I always feel that way, but I at least give myself the best chance to want to go to work and do my best while I'm there. Put as much passion into it as I can and work on other things while I'm there as well. Or just focus on my interactions with my coworkers or my patients, stuff like that. It doesn't have to be anything crazy special, but just something to give yourself a way to work on something, And when you just wake up late, you don't turn any of the lights on, you eat one meal and you take a bath, and then you stare at the wall and you stare at your phone and you just watch videos until it's time to go to the gym. Of course you're going to be low energy. I was fully prepped and primed today. I just set myself up in a way that didn't allow myself to take advantage of that. That's it. you know? So next time you're sitting in bed and you think that it's been a shit day, think about what you've actually done, you know? Have you given yourself the chance to get out and feel differently, you know? You could read a book. It could be just something as simple as that, just something that just gets your brain moving. Because, you know, Instagram and YouTube shorts and videos, whatever, that's not the key, you know? That's just keeping you distracted, you know? And you want to do something that you have to put your own energy into, even if it feels minuscule, you know? Like walking the dog. I could just go walk down to the Dollar General. It's like not even half a mile. And I could just go take a walk, you know, get my dog out, have a nice little just get out of the house. And then by the time I'm back, you're probably already going to have enough serotonin pushed in the brain to make you want to just actually relax, because it reminds yourself how lucky you are to have that time off. You know, the biggest thing isn't so much about appreciating it or whatever. It's more so just the fact of reminding yourself that kind of time off doesn't come often, especially when you got to pay for all your own shit. And when you get it, you got to be able to abuse it to the best of your ability, not to the extent of just being as lazy as humanly possible, but taking those rest days as what they were meant to be. And it's meant to be time away from generic work. Find something new to try, you know, pick up a new passion, a new hobby, go hang out with the homies in a way that you haven't in a while. Just do something that gets your brain moving. You know, that's really it. So by the end of the workout, I'm glad that like I talked to enough homies, because like I know every time I get to the gym exactly what I need to get myself moving again. It's talking to the homies, giving it my best effort on the technique, and taking it one weight at a time. No worry about strength, you know? If I really was worried about my strength today like I used to, I would have ripped under 315 as hard as I could regardless of the technique. But no, we take our time. We love the workout. We accept it. I don't think about how little time I have before my shift tonight. I just take all the time that I need and all the time that I have given myself to take at the gym and just have fun with it, you know? Accept it. Realize how it's not going to last, because it always comes back to how you never realized how good something was until you let it go and you have to get back on that normal schedule, you know, until you lose it again. So when you get those days off, take the days off. You don't have to do more work. Just do something new, you know? Even if it's a new video game, that's something new. Get something that makes you want to get up, so that when you have the work that comes back, you won't feel so dejected about going back to your norm, because you got to do so much new shit on the new days with nothing else going on that you could just go to work and be like, I'm ready to just chill out for a minute. I'm ready to go back to normal, you know? Because when you do so much new stuff like that, it makes the normal shit feel new, because it's been a minute since you've been able to do it the way you normally do. Anyway, physically, regardless of all that, you know, I tried my best. Clean jerks weren't great. Front squats and clean pulls, very happy with, even though I was pretty tired. Gotta give it a solid 9.1. You know, just because the technique on clean and jerk was damn near perfect, even if I didn't feel that great. The front squats were beautiful, and the clean pulls I worked really well on in the long term. You know, throughout the workout I got better, and the last set was the best set. So I've set myself up greatly for the next upcoming program. You know, I'm really excited because now I have like a basis of where my top, like, quote unquote maxes are. These obviously aren't my competitive maxes. They're just the singles that I hit during a singles week. And so next time I run this program, I'm not just going to do like a top set of 5 or a top set of 3. I'm going to train the progressive overload the way it's supposed to be trained and subtract like 10% or so that I can hit as perfect a technical set that I can and leave it without over fatiguing myself, so that when I get to that peak week again a month from now, I'll be able to crush whatever new weight I've got lined up for myself. Mentally, gotta give it just a 9.2, just barely above. It's been great. You know, again, like always, I have nothing to complain about. Everything's been great. I just got to remind myself that if I have a shitty, lazier day off work that feels bad, that's my own fault. You know, I know what it takes. Just like when I go to the gym and I feel low energy, I know exactly what it takes for me, or what I need to do to feel better and want to do more and want to have a better day. It's up to me to make that happen. And I just didn't do that today. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to be happy with it, and I'm going to learn from it. And the next, you know, I'm not going to have a lot of days off for the next week, but I promise you when I do, I'm going to be so happy. I'm going to sleep for a whole 12 damn hours, you know? It's going to be awesome. So I'll be back tomorrow. We have a recovery snatch day I'm going to try to emulate the 445 back squat, see how good that goes. I think it'll be there. And if I have more in me somehow, I'll try it. But again, the whole point of this is to have as best technique with these top heavyweights as I can while I'm setting my basis. So I don't want to overdo it right out of the way. So we'll get there when we get there. I'll see what happens tomorrow. And then just 2 more sessions, and then we can restart on a genuine strength training cycle. You know, I have the ground level set up. There's no more pain. My technique is awesome. We're moving in a great direction. So I'm happy. Thanks for hearing me out. You know, I love getting the shit out. And I will be back tomorrow. Let me know how the lifts and lives have been going. Love hearing about it. And I love you guys. See you later. Bye.